All right, so here we go. We're recording right now. And okay. So welcome to the class. We are going to be discussing in this first lecture just kind of the expectations of the class, as well as how to navigate through Canvas and what's the best way as far as this course. There's a lot of professors who have different types of ways for them as they see the course progressing in their minds. As you know, everybody has their own way of organizing things, and it's the same way within Canvas too. Some professors would rather organize through pages over here on the left-hand side, or through assignments. But one of the ways that I found for me as far as organization goes is just being able to lay out each week, weeks 1 through 8, but since this cycle is going to only be 7 weeks long, weeks 1 through 7. And I felt like it's easier for you guys to just kind of look at that first week and say, okay, starting today, I have all the way until next Thursday to complete the majority of these assignments. For week 1, however, because we have to show academic activity within the first week of class, I do have 3 assignments. They're really short assignments. So the first one is just the chapter lecture that you viewed. And obviously this recording will be added there right after the class is done. And then there's 2 discussion questions in introduction to the class. So a lot of you have already done that, which is great. And what I would encourage you guys to do is, because you're able to view the discussion, just to go ahead and kind of look at who's in the class. So there's about 16 or 15 in the other class as far as students go. And everybody's kind of from everywhere, it seems. So we have one class where we've got students in South Korea. We've got another class where we've got a student from Canada, and really just quite a few students just kind of all over the nation in the United States as well. So great diversity as far as different areas of the world that we find ourselves in. So and then the next discussion would be, there's just a simple discussion question with regards to wellness and what that stands for. And so just answer that, and then that will complete what I need to count as academic activity. And this is a requirement as far as regulation goes for online classes. And then you'll see the other 3 things will be due by next Thursday. So now you can kind of see where today would be the start, and then how you would have all the way until next Thursday, and then week 2 starts next Thursday and goes. And so that's kind of how our cycle is going to progress. We don't have any quizzes in this course. We do have some projects to do, which I will kind of go over just a little bit so you kind of have an expectation. One of the things I do want to point out is our chapter questions that we have. You'll see, and I'll just click on the first question here. It says, answer the following questions. What part of this chapter do you need to apply in your life right now? What questions do you have regarding your reading? And then what new concept or idea did you receive from the chapter? So within these 3 questions, I know B, sometimes you don't necessarily have anything with regards to maybe the specific chapter you read, but maybe there's a question that you have that you've been kind of pondering about that is related to fitness or nutrition or wellness that maybe you could add into that. And then as far as A and C, questions A and C go, what I'd like you guys to do is please answer those questions within paragraph form. So it doesn't give me a clear enough idea for you to answer those questions within a sentence. And as you can tell, several of these chapters are going to be a little bit longer than chapter 1, but you'll see the increase in points. And what I'd like you guys to really do is answer those questions within a paragraph. Paragraph to me is 4 to 6 sentences. So make sure that you answer those questions accordingly. Otherwise, I'll probably come back at you and remind you and dock off some points until you can give me a little bit more from your chapter reading. Again, this is a college course, so those of you who are in high school, again, make sure that you answer these questions thoroughly. One sentence answers is not going to be satisfactory. And then one of the other things I really wanted to point out was the syllabus here. If you click on that, you'll see the due dates laid out for you, and that might help as far as organization, as far as the way that you may work through things. So you can kind of tackle it from that standpoint if you would like to. So we do have a couple projects, so I'm just going to kind of go over those just a little bit for you. So one of the first projects that you're going to start encountering is the fitness testing, which is a lab-ish. So you guys are going to be doing this from home. When you do click on it, it's going to give you what is required to complete these tests, so to speak. If you click on these different documents here, and please let me know if you cannot access them, but if you can click on them, you'll see that there are definite directions as to how to complete each one. So that way you'll know exactly what you're doing. And then if you do have any questions after reading that, please don't hesitate to email me so that way I can answer them for your understanding. The next kind of project that you'll see outside of just, the regular homework requirements is the exercise program. And I've put it in here just so that way you know what's kind of coming ahead of time. So you're going to need to carve out 5 days in which you can do 3 days of strength training related activities, and then 2 days that are more focused on aerobic related activities. So that would be anywhere from jogging, running, biking, swimming, anything that's categorized as more cardio related. The 3 days of strength training can be anywhere from doing weightlifting in a gym, and I know that that's kind of a little bit of a challenge. So there are quite a few YouTube videos that you can access that have more body resistance strength training to them, or even agility workouts you can put into that strength training component. And as we move forward into the class, you'll be able to identify kind of what's more in the line of strength training compared to aerobic or cardio related activities. And so then after you're done with that, and again, make sure that you read through the entire directions here, but you're going to kind of write an essay. It needs to be 5 paragraphs long, and the exercise plan that you completed needs to be up above. So if you did do strength training, you can do each day as kind of a different component of strength training. So for instance, if you wanted to do weights in a weight room, and then the next time like on Monday and Wednesday, you decided, well, I'd rather do maybe body resistance training. And so you decided to do that on Wednesday, and then Friday you decided that you wanted to do more agility or polymetric conditioning. You could go and do those different types if you wanted a wide variety, or you can just stick with 3 days of just specific weight training. So doing the same exercises for those 3 days. It cannot be, and I've had students do this before, it cannot be doing squats for 30 minutes or push-ups for 30 minutes. That's not considered strength training. Again, you're wanting to do with strength training 3 sets of 10, and so only 3 rounds of 10. So you want to find enough exercises that are going to fill in the 30 minutes of required activity for you to do. And so After you're done with that, complete the dates in which you completed this over the 5 days that you did it. And then you're going to have the 3 to 4 positives, your warm up, your cool down, and the following questions that need to be asked. So that's kind of where you're going to head towards in that exercise program. We're going to kind of review that a little bit more when that week arrives. The other things that I wanted to address was the weight management and nutrition assignment. And so I'm not saying that you guys are going to go on a diet for several days, but what we are going to do is we're going to have you guys create a meal plan that's health related. So we're not going to include McDonald's or Cane's or any fast food restaurants. We're going to include a meal plan that has a balance of protein and grains and vegetables and fruits and dairy. And so we're trying to look at eating healthy for those 5 days as well. If you want to work ahead and you want to do the meal plan and the exercise program within the same week, you can do that. That doesn't bother me in the least. As long as you are getting what you need to from the assignments and from your chapter 5, where this is coming from, then that will be just fine. And then your final project is the last thing that I wanted to kind of go over with you guys. You guys are going to do a video, and it needs to be a 5-minute long video of either a commercial on fitness or a kind of a documentary type video or research video on obesity in America. So here are some examples. I'm going to post a couple more examples. This does not need to be in a group. So if you are, I know that there are a couple people in our class that are in close proximity of each other. And if you guys want to work on this as a group, you are more than welcome to do that. If you can't, please understand that the majority of you can't. So what you're going to do is you're going to get maybe a couple family members together, or you'll get maybe some friends that you have to help you create this video. And again, I'm going to post some individual videos so you can kind of see what that looks like. These 2 videos down here are ones where some classmates got together and they did it as a group. So again, make sure that you're carving out some time to devote to creating the video and making sure that you're doing these videos according to the rubric that's put in here in the class project section. And let's see, here we go. So this is kind of a rubric of what you're going to be looking at. So you want to get all the way over here to your 20 points. And this will give you all the things that are required in that video. So that way you have what you need to make a good video. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me as far as those components are, but I know that some of you guys have already started asking questions about that. So that's really good that you're thinking ahead. So that's kind of what those types of bigger projects look like. And then you just have, regular reading from the chapters. You also have some discussion questions. You'll have a discussion question every week. And just some other types of maybe little projects, homework assignments type things, just to help you clarify on what it takes to maybe develop a good exercise program like this workout brainstorm, or another way to identify your BMI calculation, and another way to identify your target heart rate. So we have some things that may seem competitive, but they're not, because they're just other types of ways to assess where you're at. And maybe one of those will stick with you, and you'll be able to assess some areas of fitness that you may not be strong in at this point in time, and you want to continue to assess yourself as you continue to move forward. So the last thing I wanted to talk about as far as homework goes is this chapter 1 lab is what it's called. What I need from you is just to let me know that you are indeed fit to participate in all physical activities. If you, for instance, do have a doctor's diagnosis of a back issue or shoulder issue, or you are may have had sustained an injury this spring, or something like that, let me know, so that way I can make sure that you're doing the activities necessary to complete maybe some of your assessments in a different way, or try to prescribe activities that are not related to maybe that particular injury. Whatever the case may be, we will be doing some sort of activity to accommodate for an injury regardless, just to keep it fair with all the students who are actively participating in those activities. So there's multiple ways that we can, and angles that we can go at it. So always thinking outside the box when it comes to activity and nutrition. So that's kind of what that looks like as far as Canvas goes and the syllabus. You'll also see in modules, for instance, I might have an activity. Let's see, let's go down to exercise program. Make sure that you're aware if you're going to be gone and you will not have the ability to complete that exercise program in that specific week, please email me and let me know when you plan to complete that program. If you, for the weight management nutrition assignment, I've had people who've had either a traveling week that particular week, or a family vacation, or a family reunion with lots of potlucks and hamburgers. So that's not going to be the ideal week to do that assignment. Let me know another week in which you would be available. That week might be 2 weeks from now, and that's okay. We'll just walk you through that weight management nutrition assignment, so that way you can get that completed as quickly as possible. So that's kind of what that looks like. See, any other things I wanted to talk about? If you do and are interested in wanting to participate in the live stream, just let me know, so that way I can include you in the group for the next time around, especially if you might have any questions. That's also really important for us to identify. Okay, so let's get into our PowerPoint here. Oh, that is the wrong one. Okay, here we go. All right, so fitness and wellness. From what I have been reading on some of your backgrounds in the class, it seems as if there's quite a few of you guys who have had kind of the typical American lifestyle growing up, where you had a moderate level of activity, or you were involved in quite a few athletic activities. And then you also had a family that was semi-health conscious, or all the way health conscious, or maybe a family that didn't really care about the foods that they ate. And so we have all these different areas in which we have the students who are looking at their world from this point forward as very health conscious, and when it comes to food, and those who are trying to figure out that balance, or some who feel like, well, you know, as soon as I graduate from high school and I'm in college, I get to make my own choices when it comes to nutrition. And I really want to take advantage of, you know, eating the ice cream, or being able to eat or drink as much soda as I want to. And so obviously when it comes to fitness and wellness, we always have choices in what we want to make, and we have decisions that we make all the time. We have decisions that we make either 3 to 6 times a day even, especially when it comes to snacking. And so if you think about your day and the life of yourself, you wake up in the morning and your first decision is, do I work out and do I eat breakfast? Your next decision mid-morning might be, okay, well, I'm hungry, so do I eat a snack or do I not eat a snack? Your next decision would be during lunchtime, I'm going to eat lunch and it's going to consist of this, this, and this. I might skip lunch. And so there's a choice for you to make there. And then it comes into mid-afternoon, and that might be the time where you may carve out some time, or you're playing on a team in which you're now going to try and participate in some sort of exercise or physical activity. Or you're still working as a full-time employee. So then you have this decision, am I going to eat a snack as well? And so then we hit to supper time and we make those decisions again. What am I going to eat? It could be that you have only eaten 2 meals a day, and it could have been maybe lunch and supper, or it could have been breakfast and now it's headed to supper. Whatever the case may be, it's at the end of the day. Do you invest time into making something that's health related, or is it easier and more convenient to just go to McDonald's and pick up a burger, or a Subway and pick up a sandwich? Those are the different types of decisions you make. But then there's another one. You're sitting down and you're eating or watching TV and you decide, hey, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat some popcorn. How many calories are in popcorn? And did you decide to eat popcorn because you were hungry, or just because you wanted something to munch on? And so that's, where we find ourselves when it comes to nutrition. College students, if you're studying until late in the night and we are getting to midnight, or you're hanging out with your friends and we're getting to midnight, and then we have this other decision to make. Am I going to eat ramen noodles or macaroni and cheese? I even faced that, when I was in college. Grew up with a very health conscious mother who definitely taught quite a few things when it came to health and regulating your nutrition. And but when I got to college, I saw, hey, I'm hungry at midnight and I'm still awake and I'm still having to do studies. I might want to go get something to eat and I'm really hungry, so I'm going to eat ramen or I'm going to eat macaroni and cheese. Probably not the best thing to eat, especially since within another hour you're going to go to sleep, meaning that you're not doing any sort of activity to burn that off. So we have these choices that we face every single day. And we make those choices sometimes consciously with quite a bit of thought and follow through, or we just try to find something that is easiest and most available to us. So our life is very complicated, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys have seen, even over the course of COVID, where your life has seen a rapid decline in your schedule. And you've seen where there are areas in your life that may need to be reconsidered once everything gets back open. And you might think to yourself, okay, well, this was really causing me a lot of stress, or I said yes to a lot of things that I probably didn't need to say yes to, and really stress myself out. And so when things open up, I'm probably going to have to say no to some things and keep those boundaries up. I think a lot of us have this tendency to want to fill up our time because we see that as being more servant oriented, or we see that the value of being busy. Our culture, especially here in the United States, values being busy all the time. And if you're not busy in some sort of a committee or a team or a league or something that's not recreational, then you're working a ton. And if you're not working a ton, then you must have a big social life. Whatever the case may be, there's this huge pull that we see ourselves in to be in things and be busy, and can really just wear us down. I'm curious for a lot of you guys who were in this class, how many of you guys have found rest? Yeah, it is slow paced. Some might have found it boring. Some of you guys might have been really, really confined and didn't even have the ability to go outside very often, and could not wait until things were starting to open up. But through all of that, there had to have been some pondering when it came to where you guys are at in your busyness. So when we talk about wellness, we're thinking about those elements that are involved within our entire day and our being. And we have this wellness of physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being that are kind of our main focuses, but we have even more to it than that. We've got, our environments, we have our occupation, we have the fillers in our day, and what that looks like. And so there are positive and negative choices that really just affect just our well-being outside of just nutrition, outside of even exercises and physical activity. And that's where I'm saying, maybe it's time to consider those boundaries that we kind of put ourselves not in, and we need to start creating those boundaries. So let's kind of dive into the 3 areas of well-being that we find ourselves in. So we have physical wellness, and this really does focus on what types of activities are we doing? Are we doing just chores and chalking that up to, well, that was my wellness activity for the day, or just our attitudes when it comes to behaviors and how we're making those choices when it comes to our nutrition and what we're taking into our bodies. And we've got the emotional wellness, again, involving our thoughts. Are our thoughts positive or are they negative? Are we really focusing on our feelings, or more along the lines of the feelings of others? And that's great, because God is telling us within moderateness. Now remember, we do have this sense of giving of ourselves as Christians, and really just filling up that time. And we're not necessarily always focused on developing our relationship with God as much as it needs to be in order for us to give in and pour into others. And so we really have to be careful in where that lines up and how we are focusing on. Going back to that physical wellness, there is a couple of verses that I've tagged onto here. And the first one, when it comes to physical wellness, is thinking about where our bodies are at and how we view our bodies. And in First Corinthians chapter 6, we see how our bodies are in fact impacted with the different types of choices that we make. And primarily, this chapter is focused on the immorality and how much that has an impact within our bodies. But also, we have to look at our physical wellness within just our day in and day out choices that we make. And it says in chapter 6, verse 19, do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God, and that you are not your own, for you have been bought with a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body. And we have to understand that God has given us responsibility over our bodies and the choices that we make with them. When it comes to that emotional wellness, knowing that God is the one that sustains us and the busyness of life doesn't. And so Ephesians 4:23 through 24, it says, and that you have been renewed in the spirit of your mind and put on a new self, which is in the likeness of God, has been created in righteousness and holiness of truth. God is the one that has created righteousness and holiness. And he has, when we were saved, that was a part of that dynamic that we have, and understanding that it comes from him and him alone, and that we are followers of him. I think, in the Christian life, all of these are impacted by Scripture. They have to be, because God is our creator and we are made in his image. Therefore, there are quite a few verses that relate to how we're supposed to respond and act accordingly as followers of Christ. That spiritual wellness, we have, our sins that we do, the thoughts and actions that we have, and even our values when it comes to our relationship with God, and where we're viewing ourselves in a light of eternity. Do we love the world more, or do we love God more? And I even have come to a realization that when we think about do you love the world more or God more? A lot of times we think about the world as being a place of complete sin and corruption. And though it is, I also think, though, that as Christians, we can get caught up in finding our values within the things that we do, the activities that we participate in, and we're not necessarily doing it as an eternal perspective, but we're doing it for our own fulfillment. And that also is the love of the world. And so 1 Timothy 4:8-9 says, "For bodily discipline is only of little profit when it comes to spiritual," and I'm going to add this, when it comes to the things that are spiritual. And then verse 8, it says, "But godliness is profitable for all things, since it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. It is a trustworthy statement, deserving full acceptance." And so these are the three areas of our well-being. And we have a decision when it comes to just thinking through our quality versus quantity of life. And, even within this whole pandemic that we've had, we find ourselves in, I'm sure a lot of you have known somebody who has been sick, and with this coronavirus or with a flu or with cancer or whatever the case may be. But our world is full of viruses and bacteria and microorganisms and different types of diseases that are out there. And it's so easy to be infected with something like that. Should we walk around in fear? I don't think so. Should we walk around in discernment, taking careful of what is before us and how we need to take care of our bodies? Yes. And I think that sometimes if we don't necessarily take care of our bodies in the way that we need to, then our quality of life does diminish. Quantity, meaning, the number of days that you have on this earth, that God has in his sovereign plan that you live. Let's just say that you're going to live until you're 100 years old. What you do with your body will be impacted later on. So for an example, I have had, because I've been an athlete, I've had 3 ACL surgeries. An ACL is a ligament in the back of your knee. It's a common one to injure, especially if you're in athletics. It kind of comes with the territory. Either you have experienced it or somebody else has experienced it if you're an athlete. And so with that being said, that has taken away a little bit because of the pain that I might have at different points in my life when it comes to my knees. So, when it gets when there's a thunderstorm outside, they tend to ache. So when you're thinking about an individual who has no pain at all, who is great and healthy and has tons of energy, and they have an injury that has occurred, their quality of life just diminished a little bit. But now think about what that's going to mean when you're 100 years old, what those different types of injuries will mean when you're 100 years old. And you'll read in your book of what occurs when you don't exercise regularly or when you don't stretch regularly, what that does to your muscles and your ligaments and your cardiorespiratory, so your heart plus your respiratory system, how that is impacted. And because we have those different types of things that are impacting us, if you've ever had pneumonia, you'll know that you're more prone to it later on in life. Some of these things we cannot control, and I'm not saying that you should control them because, again, God is in control of everything. But because he's given us the responsibility with our bodies, that means that we want to take every day and do what glorifies God, and that could mean that you need to stretch during the day, or you need to go for a run or something that's health related, so that way you're taking care of your body and maintaining it accordingly. It also means that you may have to go to the doctor to get yourself checked with different things that may come up. So please, I know some of you guys are in high school or you're young college students, and actually in our class we have a variety of different age groups, which is fantastic. And so you'll see how some of these things have already impacted you, and there are things and choices that are coming before you that will impact your life as you continue to move forward. So we have this wellness wheel, and within the wellness wheel, we have spiritual components, your occupational component, so what you're doing for work, emotional component, environmental component, intellectual, social, physical. And we've already, kind of discussed the physical and spiritual and emotional components, but occupationally, you may be in an environment where it's very toxic as far as your occupation. You might have a high amount of stress. You as an individual may not be able to handle the type of occupation that you're in currently, and it may need some reassessment. I've known people who can only see the retirement picture, and they're willing to just, and in a term lightly, but bleed themselves dry because they're only looking at their retirement, they're only looking at that pension, and they could care less about how it's impacting their bodies now. And when that occurs, what do you think is left when they get to that point of retirement? Do you think that they have a long time to live? Do you think that they're now dealing with several physical issues and consequences because of that, or emotional consequences? So it's really necessary to assess when you're in an occupation that may not fit you, to maybe think about that, consider maybe changing something that you're doing, or changing ways in which you can cope with it as well. And then we have an environmental element to our physical well-being, and this has two different dynamics to it. It has the point of just where you're at physically. So you may be in a house that may have mold in it. That might not be the healthiest place for you to be in. You might not be able to control that right now, but you may be able to control it in the future and make a different type of decision there. But it could impact you, in a physical way. And the other part of this environment is an emotional one, an emotional component. So, an environment that you're spending a lot of time in could be an abusive environment that you're in, could be toxic environment that you're in. And where does that line up, and how does that take away a little bit when it comes to your overall wellness? Intellectual, where are you at with that? And I think it's really important to have a place where you're being challenged intellectually. It's a big thing, and it's a big deal that you guys are taking college classes. One of the things that I like to tell my students in this class is, where does college fit into your lifestyle? Are you changing your lifestyle to fit college and classes in? Are you changing your lifestyle so that way you can financially afford it? Or are you trying to fit college in to your already packed schedule? And it's not necessarily a big priority in your life. And where does that line up? And that's not necessarily the best route to take, because you're going to procrastinate and you're going to push everything to the last minute. And then are you really learning at that point? And that's something, that you have to assess for yourself, where you line up in that area. What you're doing is you're trying to fit college into everything else that's involved in your life, and you're not willing to make sacrifices for your academics to make sure that you did pay for the class or classes, Are you getting what you need out of those classes when it comes to really investing in studying and putting that? Now, I'm not saying that that should be the forefront and you should deny all other things when it comes to college. That's not what I'm saying at all. But putting it in a balance and putting it on a priority list is something to consider. We have a social part of this. What does that look like? Are your social interactions positive or negative? Do you have friends in your life that push you towards Christ, that help pour into you, challenge you, or are the majority of your friends taking away from those types of components? Do you have more friends that are negative, that view the world in a negative light, are critical, complain all the time? That takes from you. And remember, relationships are a balance of give and take. And if people are only taking from your life, where does that put you in line of a balanced wellness factor that you find yourself in? So we're thinking about physical activities, exercises, nutrition, and other types of things that make us well. So what does it take to move? And you see these guys, and there's just muscle and ligaments that you see, and the movements that are associated with that. And I'm a little bit of a scientific geek when it comes to muscles and cellular components and musculoskeletal components. And so one of the things that I like to address in this class is what does it take for you to actually move, and our movements when it comes to, you know, just doing the everyday things, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, taking a shower. What do those things look like? And then what does it look like to do chores? Raking up leaves, vacuuming, doing the dishes, and things that might need a little bit more force and power associated with it. And then what does it take to exercise? What does that look like for your muscles in your body? I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced sore muscles after exercising, or you're starting to get back in shape and you do some push-ups and then the next day everything hurts. Or you do some squats and your legs are killing you the next day and they're really tired. And then we have, you know, little knots in our shoulders from our muscles being tight and tense, maybe looking at the screen too much on the computer. And we have an ability to sustain and balance when we're creating movement, or we're going upstairs or downstairs. So we have all these movements. And how do we move? It takes energy to move. It takes your mind telling your body what to do, right? And then how does your muscle movement, when it comes to exercising, how does muscle movement impact weight loss and strength? What does that look like? And so we have lots of various different muscles in our body, and this is kind of a simple breakdown, if you will, of the major muscles that we have in our body. And we have lots of little muscles associated with it, lots of little muscle groups too. And so you know that our skeleton is our foundation, and then we have our muscles to keep everything else stable. We have ligaments to help keep our muscles in a shock absorbency factor. We have our ligaments to keep our muscles in check. We have ligaments to keep our bones also in check as well. So when we have this layer of muscle and we have this layer of ligaments and tendons, all of it works together to keep us stable, moving correctly, and being able to do activities well. The different types of major muscle groups that we have, you know, our abs here, our abdominals, we have our quads, and the back here, we have hamstrings. Some people call them leg biceps. They're hamstrings. And we have triceps in the back part of our arm. We have our trapezius muscles that help in holding our vertebrae in check, and our deltoids in our shoulders. And so all of these different, obviously, are biceps. So you're going to find out that as we move forward in our strength and conditioning part of this class, that these muscles have a major role when it comes to burning calories. It takes quite a bit of movement and repetition to create a situation in which we're burning calories through our muscles that require movement. So we've got, our voluntary organs, and we've got our involuntary organs. And our voluntary organs are the things that we're signaling to our bodies, okay, it's time to run, or it's time to lift this thing. And then our involuntaries, the things that are already moving, our heart, our organs, our guts, our digestive system, our circulating, our blood flow. Each of these things burns calories. You've got just your body sustainability, with your heart and your digestive system. Those things are burning calories, but not in a sense of burning the amount of calories that we want to burn with movement. And we have, over the course of a day, the ability to burn calories through those organs. We have the ability to metabolize at either a quick or slow rate, depending on your body type. And then those exercise components in which we're firing up our muscles, it requires energy. And that energy comes through either glycolysis, which we'll get into a little bit later. It comes through, fats that we digest. And we're using our muscles to burn up those different types of calories that we have. And so if you look on your computer, you'll see how many calories does it take to walk a mile? How many calories do you burn playing basketball? How many calories do you burn riding a bike? Those types of calories is what we calculate when we're trying to do maybe a weight loss factor, a weight sustainability factor within our lifestyle, or even an increased muscle mass factor that we want to set ourselves in a goal that we may have. And so physical activity, we are assessing things like what produces our body movement, and we have different ways that we do that. So every time that you move, you're incorporating that energy factor, which your body is taking from your resources. So it's taking the things that you ate throughout the day and using that as your energy, and you're essentially burning calories. So it may be that you're cleaning the house. And if you think about cleaning the house, you're thinking about sweeping and mopping the floor, vacuuming, cleaning the bathtub, the shower, cleaning the sink. It requires force. Why? Because you're getting the dirt off of things. Cooking, there's a little bit of calories that are associated with that. Painting a room, washing the car, raking the yard, gardening, all those different types of examples that we find that do aid in weight loss or sustainability as far as calories go, but not necessarily can you hold on to those things as the factor that's going to let you lose weight or sustain your weight that you have. So exercise is an activity, it's a physical activity, but exercise has this component of repetitive movements with a specific type of an intensity over a specific type, a specific time frame. So as you see here, we've got somebody who's on a treadmill. We have somebody who's doing a squat, jumping rope, leg press, dumbbells, step ladder, and another person who's on a bike. So these are the type of repetitive movements with weights or without weights that will increase the burning of your calories. And these are the things that do aid in making sure that you're sustaining your weight or that you're losing the weight that you want to lose. Whatever, or you may want to gain weight, because there's quite a few people who need to gain weight. And when we're thinking about somebody who needs to gain weight, Do they want to gain weight by just eating cake all day long, or do they want to gain weight when it comes to improving their nutrition through creating muscle and sustainability that way and making it more health conscious? So physical fitness is where you are now participating in something that requires exercise. But also know that there might be some factors to consider, because this definition is something that some people I've found had to catch themselves and say, hey, I may need to go to the doctor. And it's because of this paragraph. It says, when an individual can meet both the ordinary and unusual demands of daily life safely and effectively without being overly fatigued and still have energy left for leisure activities. If you do not have energy at the end of the day or during the day to do some sort of a physical activity or exercise program, there may need to be a visit to the doctor to figure out what's going on within your body that prevents you from doing this. And not to be a hypochondriac or anything like that, but it's always necessary to get maybe a physical checkup every year, which is recommended. Health-related fitness, we've got quite a few things when it comes to health-related fitness. We've got our cardiovascular endurance, which is very much more focused on, you hear cardio, and the reason for that is because it is cardio related. It's aerobic conditioning. So jogging, biking, swimming, those types of exercises are for that. Walking is for that. Are you also building strength throughout that? Yes. You are building some strength, and you are building some muscle with your legs or your arms, depending on what kinds of things you're doing. But because you're doing it over a longer amount of time, the 20 to 30 minutes or even 15 minutes, if that's where you're going to start out, that's fine. What it is it's the endurance level that's associated with it, and your ability to be able to do this over a course of time. And then you've got your muscular strength, which is that power factor that we're talking about with weightlifting. And with weightlifting, you have a certain amount of strength, but you don't have very much of a cardiovascular endurance that's associated with it. You have a little bit, because both impact each other. They just do. But with muscular strength, you're thinking about producing force within a short amount of time. And then you have muscular endurance. And this is what we're talking about here. Muscular endurance means that you're gaining muscle when you're doing different types of aerobic activities, and as well as the strength conditioning components. And so if you were in shape, you could probably go out and you could probably cut some firewood over a long amount of time, which incorporates, those endurance factors for strength and for conditioning. Or you could play basketball, a basketball game incorporates both the strength and the cardiovascular endurance that you're talking about. And then you have flexibility, and flexibility is huge. In fact, they say that flexibility has this component to help decrease that aging process. I know, but it's researched. And within that, it means so going back to that picture of just the muscles and tendons that you were seeing, all of those tendons need to be stretched because a lot of times they can get really, really tight. And when you have tendons that get really tight, you are not necessarily motivated to go out and jog, especially if you might have some sort of a tendon that is really in more of a syndrome fashion. So there's what's called an IT band syndrome, and it's the big thick tendon that you have from your hip to your joint in your knee. And that might be you. It's very, very common. And what happens is that some muscles are maybe out of proportion. So you might have very strong hamstrings, and not as strong of hip flexors, or not as strong of quadriceps. And so because of that ratio that's not maybe where it needs to be in a balanced fashion, your IT band gets really, really tight. And then it causes other types of issues like low back pain, or your core not being strengthened as it needs to be. So it's very important to stay flexible, and it's really easy to do. You just have to hold a position for about 30 seconds, and then you're done. And you know what? When you go through a stretch program, you feel really good. You feel relaxed. You feel good because things are stretched, and God has designed us to be that way. And then you have your body composition. And this is where you have that ratio between your fats that you have in your body, your skeleton, and the muscle that's associated with it. And this is good to assess where you're at. Now, body composition, it's really, really hard to get a pinpoint, extremely accurate count on where this looks like. And it's called BMI. And within this assessment, and you'll find out here in chapter 2, that we have some people who are really, really fit and they're strong and they rank really high on their BMI. And so in some categories, they would count that as being obese, but they're not. They're just very, very muscular. And so there's only specific types of machines that can really pinpoint and identify, and we don't have those. They're not very common. It's called a DEXA machine. But what we do have is we have 2 different types of measurements that we can assess ourselves. And if one is ranking higher than the other, or if both are ranking really high, then you understand that, hey, maybe you are overweight, or maybe you are underweight, or maybe you're in a good category. And so we'll kind of walk through that in next week. So now we have skill-related fitness. And again, this is all a part of our body movement and what we can produce and what we're capable of. So the first thing is agility. And it's the ability for your body to be able to change position quickly. So if you're trying to dodge somebody, or duck, or there's, these agility exercises that people do. So they'll run from one place to the other and be able to change position quickly. That's part of agility. The other part is to just be able to produce speed quickly. And so part of that power effect is being able to take, so these guys are jumping over little small hurdles, and it's a quickness factor. It's a balance factor to be able to get through these in a short amount of time. And just be able to change our position quickly. And then we have coordination, which is just kind of graceful movement. So we have this eye-hand coordination that we have with, maybe juggling some balls. Or you see people with a tennis racket being able to hit a tennis ball, people who are shooting and being able to make the shot with basketball, all of those things, ping pong, another eye-hand coordination, baseball, another hand-eye coordination. We have a lot of those things, and again, it also comes in with musical abilities. So your ability to be able to keep beat and play your instrument or the piano, or whatever the case may be, that's also coordination because it's a graceful movement and you're able to do it and keep in time. So we have this vision process where we see something and it's within our frame, we see it, it's visual, and then our mind and our body have to work together in this coordinated transformation that takes place where we have the ability to use our hands to make something happen within our motor system. So let's just say that I'm playing piano and I'm trying to keep beat. And by the way, I only took piano lessons for 1 year. So, but my family is very musical, so I know about musical instruments. Anyways, wanted to pick something that was not sports related because I could talk for days about sports. But we have the situation where we're looking at the notes, we're making our mind and our bodies be able to do this. And so we have this frame of mind where it goes through this process into now my fingers having to be able to, one, move and press a button or a key and be able to keep beat at the same time. And so that's where that coordination comes into effect. And you can see that over and over. You can see that even within washing dishes, where you're scrubbing something and you're getting off the grime off of it and then putting it, in the rinse and then putting it on the strainer for those of you who are able to wash dishes by hand. And then we have reaction time. And reaction time is interesting because God has created this ability for us to avoid something that might be dangerous. And that's also part of this reaction time. But if you think about exercise and physical activity, you have this guy whose ability to be able to spring forward and catch the ball in short notice. You have this guy who's waiting for this one who has these two balls in his hands, waiting for them to just drop, and him to be able to have to catch one are also other factors that we see within reaction time. And reaction time is extremely important, not even just in sports, but also keeping us safe as well. And then you have speed and being able to move rapidly. And speed has two components. It's got power, but it also has reaction time to it as well. So we've got this tennis player who has to move rapidly and to be able to hit the ball. Not only does she have to hit the ball in a coordinated fashion to make it to be where it's accurate when it goes over the net, but she also has to do it with power and force, which is also part of our physical and skill-related fitness that we have. And then you've got this guy, and if you're a big Olympics fan, you know that it's Usain Bolt, fastest man alive currently. And his ability to produce speed from going to a down position to forward to all the way up within 100 feet. And so all of these things is called speed. And then power. When we think about power, we always think about this guy who's squatting like 500 pounds on his back. And that's not necessarily where power is associated. Yes, it is power, but not completely and fully. Power also comes with jumping. You go down, you engage your muscles, and you jump as high as you can is also producing a force. To be able to be in a boxing ring and to be able to punch hard is force, it's power. And so, yes, you do have that weightlifting component where you're squatting something, but it's not always that case because we have other things that we do in our life that can produce that force. Also with power, we have this component within our systems called the fight or flight. Again, dodging something that's dangerous also means that we have to have power to be able to produce that force in a very quick amount of time to dodge something or to run away from something. And running away requires speed, but it also requires power from your muscles to produce speed. And that's why you see there's a huge difference between a marathon runner who has muscles that can sustain endurance for 26 miles to somebody who is a football player, or even somebody, if you're talking about the running realm, a sprinter who's running 100 feet. They look extremely different because the person who's running 100 feet has to have as much power as possible to create that amount of speed. And so they pack their bodies with muscle, whereas the lighter you can be within your muscles and your ligaments, the better you're going to be as far as sustaining endurance components. And then we have balance, and balance is also part of our sustainability and what God has created us to do. And balance comes in a myriad of things, and you're going to see within your physical testing that you do on next Thursday, where you have ability to assess where your balance is. And so you're going to stand on one foot, you're going to close your eyes, and you're going to see if you can get up to 30 seconds on one foot. And it's not necessarily easy. Not everybody can do it. And the reason for that is because our balance is our equilibrium of our body. We have to have that ability and sustainability to be able to do that. And if we don't, then we need to have some sort of a program that lets us be able to get back into our balance. And most people can get their balance back very quickly and easily if they do the right types of things. We have lots of benefits when it comes to exercise and physical activity and our wellness, and the ability to not have as much stress in our life also impacts this, because when we're physically active, when we're eating right, when we don't have as much stress in our lives, when we're able to have good relationships, it improves things overall. And we have these different benefits that are associated with it. And a couple of them are, it lowers your blood pressure, it helps prevent diabetes. And diabetes, some people think that diabetes can only happen when people are old. That is not true. Some people think that blood pressure, high blood pressure, happens when you're old. That may be moderately true, but not completely. It also happens within young people because of that stress or lack of physical activity that we don't put ourselves in. And a huge benefit that helps with all age levels is it helps people sleep better. It helps with back pain that you might have. It helps with, your tendons to not be as tight or your muscles not to be as tight. If you're waking up in the morning and your shoulders, or in between your shoulders and the trapezius muscle section are hurting, is because maybe you're not having very much of exercise or enough activity that's associated with your shoulders, and you need to do something that is concentrated on that. It relieves tension, it relieves that stress, and we're going to talk about that scientific component later about how stress and physical activity impact each other, and physical activity can lower it in a huge amount of way if we would just do it. And it motivates us to having positive lifestyle changes. Guaranteed, if you eat right, you're going to be more likely and more motivated to exercise. When you exercise, you're putting an investment into your body that will make you say, I'm going to eat better because I'm already investing in my time, blood, sweat, and tears to exercise. So we have these benefits that are associated with it. Some of those things come naturally. And then, of course, the biggest thing is it enhances our quality of life. And our quality of life is huge. And you will not regret the things that you do in a healthy way and dynamic when you get to be older. You're not going to regret those things. Statistically, sad to say, 60% of adults do not achieve the recommended amount of activity that you want. 25% are not physically active at all. And then get this, half of college students within our nation in the United States are not vigorously active on a regular basis. Why? Because they're studying and they're trying to do well in their academics. You guys are doing well in your academics. And so the tendency is to forgo the physical activity because you have so many other things that are going on. And that happens a lot in making those types of choices. So we have this path to fitness, and we are going to really concentrate on this a little bit more when we come to chapter 2. But what we're trying to identify first, and again, I showed you that that lab that you need to do this week, is just determine on that medical clearance. Doesn't need to be by a doctor by any stretch of the means, just letting me know if you're fit to participate in activity. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is taking all of these things, the big picture, and start incorporating them. And this gives you the opportunity to incorporate it in a class so you can get a grade for it. And that's may be the motivation now, but it probably will motivate you to keep maybe going with a specific thing that we're doing within this class. And so being able to have a personal program of fitness that you enjoy, that you like. This is not a, hey, you're only going to do this one type of fitness and you're going to like it. That's not what this is about. This is about you finding something that you enjoy. Having a good diet and weight program, not saying that you need to lose weight. That's not what we're talking about, but what is it going to take to sustain your weight that you have now? If you need to lose weight and you want to make that as a goal, we can definitely make that a goal in this class. No problem about that. If you need to gain weight, please email me so that way I can help you through that program as well. And then we have just the ability to assess, make those decisions that are good for your lifestyle and maybe not as good as you encounter those different choices that you make. Now, I'm not saying that you should never eat ice cream ever again, never have a piece of pie again. That's not what we're talking about at all. We're talking about every single day, how you're living your life week to week, day by day. What does that daily life choice look like with what you're doing with your habits? That's what we're looking at, not the birthday parties, not Christmas. Those things, again, you want to have joy in your life, and if you find joy in a piece of pie, that's okay. So we're not going extreme here. And so we have different types of healthy lifestyle habits, and this is kind of a checklist of things that you may be doing now and maybe you need to continue doing, or things that you need to maybe take out and really assess what that looks like. And so having a ability to participate in a physical activity program is something that's a good habit to have. Obviously not smoking, being able to eat right, avoid bad snacks. So maybe a bag of Doritos daily might not be the best snack. Maintaining a good recommended body weight, getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night, lowering your stress levels, not consuming alcohol, surrounding yourself with healthy friendships. That's a big one. And then seeking to live in a good, healthy environment, and just being able to continue to challenge yourself mentally. A couple of things that moving forward we're going to look at and identify in chapter 2 is just having that self-analysis of, do you want to change? What are the things that you want to change within your life? And it could be a myriad of things. Obviously, in this class, we're focusing on eating right. We're focusing on the less stress factor. We're focusing on exercise. But looking at your behaviors and are they happening frequently? What are some circumstances that are preventing you from having that? And what are some consequences that might lead to that? What does it look like to set a goal? And how do we set a goal that's good, that's measurable? Social support. Do you have an accountability partner? Do you need an accountability partner? Being able to write things down and monitoring your progress. Monitoring progress does motivate. It's a huge motivating factor to continuing a program. Having a positive outlook. Being able to have rewards. Now, maybe not the most healthiest reward would be if you were on a diet and you went for a week and then you decided to have a big bowl of ice cream. May not be the best reward to do if you're going through like a 6-month program, but maybe there's other types of rewards that you could find that you would like to do as a part of that. We've got a couple of verses. 1 Corinthians 3, we talk about, our bodies being a temple of God, and really making sure that we're taking that responsibility upon ourselves to keep us as fit and healthy as possible. Romans 12:1, just looking at God's mercy and offering ourselves as living sacrifices. This goes in many components. The component that we're looking at right now is that health and fitness and exercise and diet. And are we living what we need to? If we're not healthy, we don't have energy to serve others. 1 Corinthians 14:40, doing things in a fitting and orderly way, and you're thinking, okay, well, how does that manifest itself? One of the things that, as you're going to see, is the ability to set goals, the ability to be able to do things in a way that shows, progress. Getting in shape shows progress. Those types of things we're kind of looking at. And then Deuteronomy 24, one of the best, most encouraging verses that I want to give to you today is, for the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to give you victory. And victory can be seen not in necessarily a battle with swords and guns and shields, but in a battle that we fight every day within ourselves. And God is with us in that fight. We need to include him in everything that we do. And one of those things that we sometimes leave him at the doorstep is eating well, is physical activity, is is doing things that are healthy for our bodies because we think it's within our own control. Yes, God gives us the responsibility to handle our bodies in such a way, but he also says that he'll be with us no matter where we're at. We need to take that into account. And so something for us to think about is, what would happen if we live 15 years without caring about our bodies? What would happen with our character? What would happen with our health? These things, looking forward, as an 18-year-old, you may not necessarily view eating right or exercising consistently as something important because you're thinking, I look skinny, I'm fine. That might be, and kudos to you for that, first of all, but also know that skinny people cannot be well. And it could be a false situation in which you might be eating French fries and hamburgers and thinking that you're okay, but to be honest, it's not going to feel good all the time to eat that much junk food either. So please take into consideration what you're doing now will impact you here in the future. And we have this SMART goals, and you're going to see this within your reading, and we're going to discuss this a little bit more next week, but our SMART goals are measurable, and they're realistic and attainable. And so just an example might be that maybe I want to go on a diet and I want to reduce my body fat by 20% in 12 weeks. That's a realistic assessment. It's measurable because it's 20%. So I'm measuring my body fat by percentages. It's acceptable because it's a motivating factor and it's commitment that, yes, I can do this. It's realistic, it's small, and it's realistic. And it's time specific because I'm saying that I'm going to do this within 12 weeks. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to apply what I need to do as far as a plan in order to complete it within a certain amount of time. Now, if I was to say I'm going to reduce my body fat by 20% in 6 weeks, probably not so. And the things that you see on the media about this diet and that diet may not necessarily be realistic either. And sometimes they cause some real bad consequences as a result, or really big digestive issues too. Just within research and testimonies too that I've seen and heard. So doing things that are healthy, it takes time, and people want the now factor, and the now factor cannot happen within your health. Every week, if you are committed to doing a program every week, you'll see a difference. You'll see a difference in your energy levels the first week. You may not see it in your waistline, but you'll see your energy levels increase. You'll see it sometimes within the first 2 days. I'm not saying that you're able to be Superman, but saying that you'll see a difference. You'll see a difference in your attitude, and seeing how positive you are with your emotions too. And then as you progress every week, as long as you're okay with saying this is going to be a longer time, and I'm okay with that, then you're going to be doing just fine. And so as far as, chapter 1 is concerned, this is where we're at, and where we're wanting to go. And in the next couple of chapters, you'll see as we make and create these programs that there could be some benefits that you are really enjoying, and maybe sometimes it may be a challenge to get in that exercise, or maybe you might have to one day have to go at a really early morning shift that might not necessarily be fun, but all you have to do is start. That's all you have to do, and you'll see the impacts as a result. So that's it for our class, and if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we're done.